This is That One Audition with Alyshia Ochse.
What I was saying off mic was, you're from Florida. We're a little bit of age difference, but I'm from Kentucky. Nobody told me. I was like, I want to be an actor. So my mom put me in modeling. I was like, no, not the same, not the same.
Yeah, not quite.
But how you find your way into this business, I think, is either you can see it or now you can Google. And it's interesting what Google will tell you what to do. But when it was your thing, so your mom took you to see the arts a bunch and you got interested in it. When did you realize, like, how do I go? What are the step-by-steps? What was your insight, mentor, pathway?
I had no interest in being an actor. I didn't think, no, like I
You're
liked
gonna be a
doing
lawyer?
it. I was going to be a lawyer. Yeah.
Which I think is great acting in its own way. Have you served jury duty yet? Have you sat on a jury and watched two lawyers go and give their audition?
I honestly haven't. I don't think I've been live like in a courtroom, actually, that I can recall. I don't think I've ever been selected for jury duty. I know that I haven't. I've never sat on a jury.
I'll just tell you right now, I think a transition from being a lawyer or studying to be in law to acting is a very seamless transition that a lot of people might not think about that way.
I totally agree. In fact, the funny thing is, I don't think I realized this is a revelation that I had well into my career, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I think during COVID, when we were all like sitting at home or like going on lawn walks and just like contemplating our lives. I loved the show Boston Legal growing up. That was like my jam. When I was in high school, I was like, Boston Legal. I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was brilliant. However unrealistic it might have been, it was like, I don't know. Did you ever watch that show?
Yep, I did.
James Spader in all his glory would be like, every episode just came down to James Spader delivering this like incredible heartfelt monologue to the jury at the end of the episode. It's like a 4-page monologue every time. And in my head, I'm like, wow, this is like how it works when you're a lawyer. You just get to go in there and convince these 12 people. And he won every single time. And I was like, that's what I want to do. So in my head, I'm like, I want to be a lawyer. I want to be that guy. And it took me like 10 years to realize, oh no, I didn't actually want to be the lawyer. I wanted to be James Spader.
I want somebody to write my monologue for me. I want to rehearse it. I want nobody's life to be on the line. And then I'm going to go execute it. And everybody's going to believe what I say. Even if
that was the thing
that,
that was the thing that moved me. It wasn't like the idea of being a lawyer. It was James Spader and like him acting. And I was like, oh man, I can't believe it took me this long to realize this.
So with this revelation, is this because you were bouncing between New York and LA? Did you go straight up to New York first?
No, I went to LA. I went straight to LA.
I
never lived in New York. The very abridged version is went to college in Virginia from Florida, did 4 years there, graduated, moved to LA for an internship at a law firm. Like I was gung ho.
You're James Spadering the whole moment.
I was James Spadering the whole way. I wanted to go to law school in California, which is why I came out to LA and got an internship, like a fairly quote unquote prestigious internship at a big fancy law firm in LA. Thought it was awesome. Planned to take 2 years off before I went to law school. And in those 2 years, I was like, I don't know, I'm in LA. I liked acting when I was in high school. It was a fun hobby. Maybe I fuck around with that and just see what happens for a couple of years.
Okay, but when somebody
just by your facial reaction, you're like, what?
I'm like, okay, no, because I love this actually. I love when somebody's, I just want to fuck around and see what happens with acting versus the people that are like, I'm going to get my headshots. I'm going to get an agent. And then I'm going to get on this show. And then I'm going to do this. It's so interesting. I love talking to people when they're like, fuck it. I'm just going to see what happens. It's the fuck it people that end up being like, here's a job. Here's a job. And you don't know the intensity of it until all of a sudden you're like, oh no, I want to make this a job. So please tell me about how somebody that wants to just fuck around ends up in series after series.
Yeah, the fuck around part really didn't last very long because what happened was when you're 22 years old, you think everything.
Totally. What 22-year-old doesn't? Of course. Yeah, exactly. I was moving to LA and getting on a show immediately, obviously.
Yeah, I just knew like about the world. Like I knew everything there was to know about the world, even in like in industries and areas that I had no experience whatsoever. So I got set up on this general meeting with a producer who's like a family acquaintance just to be like, hey, what do I need to know if I'm like 22 and decided I want to be an actor? And he was the first one that told me like, oh, you just want to try this for a couple of years and see what happens? And I said, yeah, totally. If nothing happens, I'm going to law school. And he's okay, don't bother. So that's not, he's like, literally, I will never forget sitting in his office and just being like, what do you mean? I had no idea what he was saying. It took 45 minutes for him to like really explain what he was talking about and drill into my head. He was like, this isn't the kind of business that something's going to happen if you just try it for a couple of years. He's like, if that's your plan, like all due respect, go have fun for a couple of years, go do something that's going to be enjoyable, but it's not this. So that was good advice. That kind of changed my entire perspective and my whole life.
But are you the person that I'm the person, if somebody tells me, no, don't do this, then I want to do it more. And if somebody's like, go do that, I do a reverse psychology. At 22, what is your psychology at that point where you don't even try? This is ridiculous.
I was a little bit like that, where I was like, I wasn't necessarily, oh, fuck you, I want to do it more. I was like, I'm intrigued now. Explain yourself. Why did you just say that? Because you're very successful. And so I feel like I should listen to what you're saying, and at least hear you out. And everything that he said after that made total sense to me. And I'm sure that you can identify with this, right? He essentially said three things. One was, I basically asked him, I was like, so how long? Like, how long do I have to quote unquote try this before I'm like, it's not really working out. I'm going to go be a lawyer or go do whatever. And he straight up said 10 years without blinking an eye. And I was like, that seems like a long time. Do I really want to be
a 22-year-old? You're like, that's half my life.
Literally. I was like, do I really want to be in my early 30s and be like, I'm going to start over now? That seemed crazy to me. And once he explained it, it did make sense, even if I didn't totally understand it. He was like, one, you have to figure out if you're any good at it. Like, I think a lot of people, myself included, we do like a high school play or like community theater when we're young, and people are like, oh my God, you're so good. That was so funny. And we're like, I'm awesome. I'm talented. And then you get in the professional world. Let's give a trophy to everybody.
So you get a job, you get a part in the play, and you get a part in the play.
And at the end of the play, everyone just stood up and started banging their hands together for me. Like, I must be amazing at this. But he was like, truly, you need to figure out if you're any good at this, like on the professional level. And since I didn't do it at all in college, like I didn't study drama or anything in college, he was like, I would recommend going and spending a few years and just like studying, find teachers that you like, find coaches that you like, just train and like figure out if you're good at it. So that was one thing. The second thing was essentially, can you deal with the ups and the downs of it? Because that's obviously a big thing that we all know. And then the third thing, ironically enough, was, do you even like it? I think a lot of times we think that we're going to like doing it because we liked doing it as a hobby, but all of a sudden, once it's a profession, then it's an entirely different story. And I know you probably do too. I know a lot of actors who are like, I just don't enjoy it the way I thought I was going to, or anymore. Whether they get burnt out mentally, or they're just like, this, I'm not having as much fun as I would like to be having, and there's something else I would enjoy doing more. And it's like, yeah, that's pretty valid.
That's very valid. And I think I've been having a lot of these conversations lately with some of my contemporays that have been 3-4 series deep, and the industry's changing right now. And it doesn't give me the same joy, the 14-hour days, right? You have a family now. Does it actually bring you joy? And you're the only person that can answer that at the end of the day. Like, you can't phone a friend. You can't ask your agent or manager. Like, you really have to know that's not their job to tell you like what actually interests you. Right. And that can shift and change. But trying that at the beginning of the career at 22 years old, you don't know. So which one did you tackle first? I
took it all in stride, right? I was like, I'm a very like left brain, analytical, logical person. So I do remember going home from this meeting, and I was like, okay, I guess I need to make an actual decision. Am I really going to do this thing or not? And I didn't have a great experience interning at that law firm. It isn't what I necessarily thought it was going to be, even talking to people who had been in it for decades. And so I really took it seriously and wrote out all the pros and cons, and just spent a couple of weeks like doing all that kind of stuff and talking to people and figuring out, okay, finally I come to the decision. Great. This is what I want to do. I'm going to give it a go. It was real fun explaining that to my family after they so generously paid for me to go to college for 4 years on the assumption that I was going to go to law school. And I was like, hey, thank you for that.
What did you present as your pros, and what did you present as your cons? Did you give them any of those?
No, I didn't. That was for me, just work it out in my brain. I basically just told my family like, hey, this is what I'm going to do, and your support would be appreciated. And I will be honest, if I had to go back and do it all over again, I would choose the exact same path. A lot of people, I think, it's almost like I wasted 4 years going to college and then starting this. I wouldn't have come out here when I was 18 years old if I could do it all over again. That seems insane to me.
There's so much life lived. I was just hiking with another actress, and she was listing all the things that she's done in her life. And I was like, do you know how invaluable that makes you? Like, you're the only person that's done all those experiences. If you don't have enough experiences, that's why I think I don't like interviewing people if they have less than 10 years experience, because honestly, they don't have enough life lived. They don't have enough experience in the industry to be able to give value to a story or give value to their journey. So you have to actually live some life in order to portray some life. Going to college, like, it made you, I'm sure some of the stories, look at some of those shows that you've done. playing. Yeah, a lot of that is relationship based on that time of your life.
And you just grow up. You grow up, you learn how to mature and handle yourself, and you meet people from so many different parts of the country and the world, and you just gain like a little bit worldliness, I think, even in those short 4 years when you're from 18 to 22. But yeah, I would do it all over again. So I might have taken classes that had nothing to do with my career, but I also think that's a fairly common story, especially in America. Like so many people go and study things in college and then end up in a completely different career.
Because something piques their interest. Okay, so who did you start training with? Or who did you start so you could even learn, do I even like this? I
went all over the place.
You did
I did. I initially went to Ivana Chubbuck because I had a cousin who was an actress and she was like, go study with this person. So I went to her studio for a while. I went to like places that were specifically about on camera stuff. I went to places that were specifically about auditions. I mean, I was all over the place for a few years and was like, okay, great. I do enjoy this. I think I'm halfway decent at it. And then like a career unfolds as any career unfolds. I think the difference is that in any other career, there's almost like a defined set of steps that you take where it's great. As long as I continue to work my ass off, like these are the steps that I can expect, right? These are like the touch points along the way that are going to get me to the end goal. That doesn't exist in our industry.
Not at all.
It's just like you can work your ass off for however many years you want and may end up with nothing. Like truly, I know plenty of people.
Yeah, the people that I've been talking to this past week where they've been 5 series regulars deep and now they're like, I can't get a job to save my life. Okay, it ebbs and flows. I always relate it to surfing where it's, even though I don't surf, you get a wave, you catch it.
What you've seen in pictures and videos, yeah.
What I notice, you just ride that wave and then you gotta sit and you gotta wait for the next wave. And sometimes there's a lot of time between waves. There's a lot of time.
Yeah.
And what do you do to fill that time? Okay, so then I have to, so you start doing classes, you start realizing you're good at it. How do you get an agent or manager?
Let's see. I think my very first manager I got from a recommendation from somebody I was in class with. She was with a manager and she was like, oh, hey, like this guy doesn't have a manager. And they met with me and they signed me and then dropped me 6 months later. It was like almost immediate.
You got your first firing right out of the way.
Right out of the bat. Yeah, exactly. I know.
Did they give reason?
It was like the person who was representing me directly was essentially leaving the company and maybe the business. She was having a baby and all that. And I figured, oh, okay, like she's leaving. So who's going to represent me now? And they're like, not anybody here.
You're like, and back to the drawing board.
They're like, your guess is as good as ours. So I was like, great. Yeah. And that literally lasted for 6 months. And then I happened to meet somebody who was a manager at an acting class. Very weird story. I had gone to audit an acting class because I was like, oh, maybe I want to take this new class. I'd heard good things about it. I happened to audit and show up on a night that they were doing like a showcase for like agents and managers and casting directors and whoever, which was not a very good night for me to go audit because I'm like, this is not normal. But anyway, I sat through it. And sure enough, one of the managers that was there watching people perform their scenes approached me in the bathroom afterwards and said, hey, I don't know, are you an actor? I didn't see you, put up a scene. I was like, yeah, I'm just here watching. Gave me his card. Ended up signing me. And I worked with him for 12 years or so. I worked with him for a long time. I came up in the industry with him. So just
just never know. I think sometimes that's
never know. You probably noticed this, right? You've heard 1,000 stories. Everybody has a different way into this business. There are a million different ways and avenues and pathways into this business. And that's why I always tell people that are asking me for guidance and advice when they're first coming up, I'm like, take everything that you hear with a grain of salt. There is no one prescribed way of doing this thing. If anybody tells you that you have to do X, Y, and Z, they're probably full of shit because nobody has to do X, Y, and Z. So I always just knew that instinctually when I was starting, where I was like, if somebody said something that didn't register with me or didn't make sense or just like it didn't sit well with me, I was like, I don't think that's my way of doing things.
That's remarkable because I think a lot of actors are recovering people pleasers. So they take everything that anybody says as
guilty.
As that same recovered. It took time, right, to understand like where's my center? What do I want to do? How do I want to run my business? How's my team reflective of that? Am I sharing enough of myself so they know how to sell me? I'm the product. They don't know how to sell me. They can't do that. Yeah. And are they high enough in the industry to actually be in the know? Because we're all trying to scramble and it's all a crapshoot. It's complete. Like my agent the other day, he has somebody that He put in a horror film for $500 and ended up being a box office hit and made 29 million the first. He goes, the reason why I respect him so much is because I had no idea. Like
Yeah.
versus the agent this is what we're going to do. No, nobody
Right.
knows.
Right.
Everybody's trying to figure out. That's why this podcast exists.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure it out. And there's comical ways to figure it out. And then you can take what you want, leave the rest. But how incredible that you had that wherewithal earlier in your career. I'm going to give that to your lawyer sense of you being James Mann.
Yeah. Yeah. That must be it.
That must be it. Okay, so you start working with this agent. I want to know that one audition. It can be the good, the bad, the ugly. You've had so many great jobs, but sometimes the best auditions are the ones that don't even go in our direction. So I'm curious, what is that one audition, Stephen?
Oh my God. That one audition. I have a couple that stand out as like formative experiences in my life that I think have actually shaped something in my career. One, shit, this is embarrassing. So I was auditioning fairly early on. I had worked a little bit. I had some jobs, and I was auditioning for the Percy Jackson movie.
Oh,
I think it was the second Percy Jackson movie, not the original one. But there was a character in that movie that was supposed to be like a cyclops, one-eye kind of mythical creature. And I had worked with somebody on it, and for whatever reason, I was convinced to essentially do almost like I was doing a voiceover. I did a true fucking character, like it was an animated film, where I was kind of like, like not, and I like took all the dialogue and kind of put it into that cadence with that tone, and I like created like an actual like what I would imagine a cyclops would sound like. I get into the room. I had practiced this for days. I was like, man, I'm taking a swing here. I don't know. This feels weird, but also maybe I'll stand out. Cool. I get in the room and I do it, and it's dead silent. Like 4 or 5 people in the room, and it's just completely dead silent. And I was like, oh my God, it felt like an eternity that nobody said anything. And finally, the casting director, God bless her, she was very nice about it, but she was like, so why don't we do it again and just talk normal like a person?
You don't like that version?
I'm like, so this is not, I'm like, wow. I'm sure every actor has them where we completely misinterpret something and we just take a swing and it is the biggest swing and miss you could possibly imagine. And I could not fathom the shade of red that my face probably was, especially still being relatively young. Like, I don't have that many credits. This is like a big opportunity. This is a casting director that casts a lot of stuff. And I'm just like, I think I blacked out the second time I did it. And I just wanted to get out of there as fast as I possibly could. But oh my God, I was humiliated.
I feel like some of those need to happen in the beginning because but also having the balls to be like, I'm going to swing for this. I'm going to go. I gave a character a lisp once. It made sense to me. It worked in the story. I thought it was hilarious. It's a comedy. Crickets, where you're like, you didn't like that? Didn't like that? But then you hear other stories where people are like, I rewrote it. I came in. I talked like this. And people are like, genius. So I think the risk taking, it's just such a thin line between what is genius and what is pure embarrassment. But okay, have you seen that casting director since?
I would have to go back and look, but I honestly don't think I have.
That's okay.
Like, truly don't think I have. Yeah, no, I'm not like, oh man, I should actually go back and look. I'm trying to remember in my head who it was. There's a chance that I have, but I can't recall. And maybe she's not even, that's what I'm going to tell myself. She's not in the business anymore.
Not even in the business anymore. She's retired. She was oversight.
Shortly. I probably caused her retirement with that audition. She was like, I can't do this anymore.
How did it? Also, at the same time as the casting director, I would actually really appreciate when somebody came in and just did something totally different because you're just seeing the same stuff over and over. That makes you look up. How did that change how you approached what kind of risks you took in your auditions moving thereafter?
Yeah, I think there was like a little bit more investigation about what exactly is the style of this particular thing. Like I would go and watch, I did go and watch that Percy Jackson movie with that character, and I was like, yeah, I see what they were going for. They were just going for just a normal kid,
normal dude
happens to have one eye.
Just going to make it as normal as possible.
Literally. Look, I think you learn those things. I also think you learn the context in which it's okay to take risks, and so much of it is where, look, if Brad Pitt had gone in and done that, who cares? Like, truly, it wouldn't have
That's
mattered.
true.
They
They
would have been
wouldn't
like,
have
Brad,
cared.
thank you for that. That was amazing. They're like,
Riveting,
riveting
riveting.
stuff, riveting stuff. I think
We
we
have
want to
another
try,
idea.
yeah, maybe this one other idea, and let's just see how it plays compared to.
Yeah.
So again, I think you gain a little bit of stature and experience in this industry, and all of a sudden you've got a resume to back it up. And I think people will give you a lot more leeway to just like goof around and try stuff, and
Mhm.
not be like, oh, this person has no idea what they're doing. So
Yes, I think that's the thing that relevancy gives you. It just gives you permission to be able to take a little bit more risk. And then the casting
yeah,
directors being like, oh, I don't know. Maybe this is genius. Maybe. Who
exactly.
knows?
Yeah, you're gonna show them something that they had no idea they even wanted.
But as far as doing a little bit more investigation work, are you asking your team to like, hey, more clarification on this? Or are you just doing more investigative like research when you're getting the role to who's making it, what's happening? Because I think that's
Yeah.
a smart decision as an actor. And sometimes it takes people a while to utilize their team in that way. Like, hey, just curious, do they want an accent for this? Do they want a lisp? Do they want a lisp for this?
How do they feel? Scale of 1 to 10
Scale of 1 to
about the
10. We
list.
can go
Yep.
this.
I know.
Okay.
Do any of the producers have like children with lisps that they might find
Yeah.
offensive?
Would they
Yeah.
find this offensive or do they find this endearing? I thought it
Yeah.
was really endearing. A
I would
Cyclops
be on
that,
your side. Yeah.
you know, a Cyclops, like it could have other deficiencies that were not clearly born with one eye, maybe not
Yeah.
born with like verbal skills.
And listen, that Cyclops that I played was an emotionally layered Cyclops. I mean, so there were levels to it. I promise you. He was coming from a place of insecurity and deep-seated pain.
Yes, he couldn't communicate exactly how he wanted to. Everybody else.
Exactly. But no, I usually, yes, of course, I will utilize my reps and ask for as much information as I can. But then there's just so much available to us now. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like it was 10, 15 years ago when I was like just starting out. You can pull up anything you want that's ever been made. So, especially if
Yes.
it's a television show that is already been on the air, go watch the last few episodes of the previous season or go watch something that the writer or the director has done before if it's a film. There's so much you can do. And I've found recently, at least, that we're getting a little bit more time to work on these things. I think that was that part of the was that
It's
part
part
of
of the strike. We're
the
supposed
strike?
to have
Yeah.
48 hours.
Supposed
We're
to.
supposed
Yeah.
to. I
Yeah.
still get those in bold letters due tomorrow.
Right, right, right.
If you want to. Running
Yeah.
fast. Television does. People
Yeah.
fall out, right? So how are they supposed to be able to move things around? That's
Sure. Yeah. Fair enough. I will admit I feel like a lot of the things that I have gotten lately have been like, great, we need it by next week. And I'm like, cool, that's awesome. Because I have a lot going
Absolutely.
on right now, and then I'll be able to sit over the weekend and watch some stuff and do some research and just educate myself a little bit. But yeah, I think the more information you have, the more you know about if it already exists or if it's a new thing. It's just it all only helps.
Then I always ask this, and this seems like a good time to know this, especially now with you getting like a week or maybe 5 days to work on something. And you've worked, like people that are listening to this episode now, not like you did the originals, you've done like you're on Yellowjackets right now, like you've gone from show to show, you've done Roswell, like you've been
Hmm.
working for a long time. Working on set and auditioning, two totally different muscles. They just are. It's a different workout. So when
Yeah.
you get something, you get an audition now, and you have the 5 days, other than reading the script, how do you approach what you're going to sell? How do you approach breaking down your Cyclops ideas?
Ironically enough, I think it actually gives me an opportunity to work a little bit more similarly to how I would work if I was just on the job. Whereas before it was like, okay, great, we don't get very much time to prepare. Let me just figure out like the broad arc of this. Like I remember there was a time when it would be like, great, beginning, middle, and end of an audition piece and differentiate the two different scenes and all that kind of stuff. And now I get a little bit more time to really dig into it and be like, okay, like who is this person really and what is actually happening here and what story am I telling? So you just get to spend a little bit more time exploring, I think, and going a little bit deeper. And that's, I mean, to me, that's the kind of work I love to do. I don't know how you feel about this. The disadvantage of taped auditions, I'm a sucker for going in a room, and that just doesn't happen, obviously, very much anymore. I live in Nashville now, so that truly almost never happens. Occasionally go over Zoom, which is great. But the advantage of going in the room back in the day, or even these days going in a Zoom audition, they have to sit there and watch your entire audition. If it's a 3 or 4 page scene, I don't care. You're watching the whole thing. Yep. And you will enjoy it. Versus like you send in a tape and it's, I don't know, did they watch it at all? Did they watch 5 seconds of it? Did they watch 20 seconds of it? Did they watch the whole? I truly have no idea. We never really know. And it's amazing to me that there are like almost entire classes out there now about like how to catch people's attention in the first 10 seconds of your audition, because people know that oftentimes that's all you're going to see. And I'm like, man, is this really the
Yeah,
world that we live in now where it's like, just
it
grab them
is.
from the start?
It is because I think also if you flip and you sit in the casting director's position, which I know you've directed something, so I'm sure people, unless you cast it on your own, were people sending you tapes? Were you getting
People did
tapes?
send me tapes. Yeah, cast it. I did cast it on my own. I offered it to people that I've worked with before and all that. But I solicited some tapes just to
Just
see who was out there.
I have to say, because I also do teach, when I see 30 tapes for the same set of sides,
Yeah,
I absolutely know within the first 5 to 10 seconds if somebody's locked in or not. I just do. And if it's
I believe it.
interesting, I'll keep watching. If it's not, where they're dead center, they're reading, there's nothing activated. Why am I going to continue to watch? There's not, especially for something like, and so I do, and then you'll find yourself watching something that maybe the person's not right. Like you send in a tape, that first 10
Mm-hmm.
seconds, I'm eating popcorn and I'm like, okay, this person's not right, but I just want to see what else they're going to do because I'm just so
Mm-hmm.
enthralled with it. I think that first 10 seconds, 15 seconds absolutely is a marker now because they're seeing more people. And I think they
Sure.
used to judge us on the first 10, 15 seconds when we came into a room too. Like I can't tell you how many rooms I walked into and I was like, definitely not what they're looking for. They definitely are going to have to still watch me do this. And then,
Uh-huh.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Or they might change their mind somewhere in the middle of it, but I'm still not the puzzle piece, right? So
Right,
they
right.
might put me in a folder for later. But I do understand. I also, when roles going in the room, just being me, didn't matter what the text was, or we could like work around it. So that 15 seconds might have been more on my essence or personality before I started working. But I think with tapes, did you make a tape for Yellowjackets?
No,
Was
that
that
was all in the room.
that
That was
was
in
in the room?
2019. Yeah, that was all in the room, which was so nice.
Because that's I wanted to ask about that audition. Like how, so do you feel like that role was earned more because of the presence of the room versus what you did, or a combination of both? Obviously, you're a great
Um,
actor. We're not dismissing that. We're
Oh,
not
well,
dismissing
thank you.
talent.
Yeah, part of it was that it was written for me. It was written with me in mind anyway. So I had worked with the writers on my previous show on the originals.
On the originals,
And so
yes.
when they made this pilot, they wrote this role, as I found out later. I suspected it when I first read it. I was like, I wonder if they like had me in mind for this.
They
And then
didn't
they were
tell you
like,
before you came in?
no, which I appreciated honestly, because I think if they had told me, I would have been, the experience would have been very different. Like I would have been all in my head about it. And so no, I'm very grateful that they did not give me that heads up before I auditioned for it. Um,
That's great. I've heard of people being like, breakdown, Steven. And then they're like, oh, it's written for me. They go in and they're like, no, we really don't want Steven. We want somebody like Steven.
yeah, there's a myriad of ways that can go wrong. Like just psychologically,
Yes.
I don't know if I would have gotten cocky about it and been like, oh, this is my role, or if I would have just tried to be myself. But there's so many ways it can psych you out. So no, I just went in competing for the job like I would for any other. And it was like one of those classic, like multiple rounds, like go in for casting and producers, and then come back for casting producers and director, and then come back for some of the studio people, and then they send your tape off and the whole thing and the testing and like the whole shebang. And it was a long, it was a long process. I remember there being like a 3 week period where I had heard nothing, and except we're still looking, like there's a chance we may go in a different direction, all that kind of stuff. It was a roller coaster ride for sure.
Then I want to reverse all the way back then to the originals because you joined that season 4, correct? So they had been
No,
going.
the
Or
originals I joined at the very beginning.
you did join in the very beginning.
Yeah,
So
Roswell, I think I joined in season
so it was
3.
Roswell
Yeah,
that you were
yeah,
joining then. Is
yeah.
so
The originals I joined right at the beginning in the second episode of the series, and that's a great one too. That's one of the
I
ones
want to hear
that
that
I
one.
take a lesson away from because two things happened. One, I had turned down the audition multiple times.
Why?
I had no business turning down auditions at the time. Like truly, I did not. But when it came in, they described the character in the breakdown, and it was a gay character. And I remember as I read the sides, for whatever reason in my head, I just pictured the quote unquote stereotypical kind of queenie gay man flamboyant. And I was like, I think that's what they're going for. And if that's the case, there's somebody out there that's better, that's going to be better for this role than me. So respectfully, I don't think this is the right one for me. And they literally had to come back finally and say, hey, you're misreading this. This is not actually what we're looking for. We literally just want like a normal college dude who happens to be gay. And I was like, oh, okay, my bad. Great. I'll
You're like,
see
I
you
went to
tomorrow.
college. I
I
know
was like, I can
exactly.
do that.
I
Yeah.
can do
Yeah.
that.
Great. Yeah. And so I went in and did it and got the job. And that was I forget now. It was like the 10th or 11th time I had been in for that casting director over the course of 2 years. First job that I got from them after 10 or 11 auditions. And I remember after I got the job, I went back in, I took them like a little thank you. I got them like this cute little gift basket and walked back in and was like, hey, thank you for continuing to bring me back in over the course of the last couple of years. Like all these times never got a job, never booked anything that you guys were reading me for. And they were like, ugh. I saw the visible annoyance on their face where they were like, Steven, we wish that more actors understood this. We weren't doing you a favor. We kept bringing you back in because we liked what you were doing and you were doing good work. And just because like it didn't happen to go your way didn't mean that you were doing a bad job. So yeah, of course we were going to keep bringing you back in. And that was a very big light bulb moment for me where I was just like, oh, yeah, of course that makes sense. Like they're not doing anybody favors. They're trying to solve a problem. Like they're
They're
truly
trying to
trying to
solve a
solve their
problem and they
problem.
trust you that you could possibly be the person to
Yeah.
solve it for them. They're just doing their jobs and they
Yeah.
call in actors that they can trust. It's a trust thing after a while. It's like a trust fall where you're like,
Totally.
okay, I know this actor can do it. They'll make me look good. Casting directors need to look good too for the producers and
Yeah.
directors in the studios. It all comes back to their reputation with actors, their knowing of actors that are going to deliver. But
Yeah.
why does it take us 10 years to like, because you were probably close to 10 years into working at that point, 8 years into working.
I was in my late 20s at that point. I was in my late 20s at that point, but I'd only been working for a few years. Like I had been out here for 6 or 7 years and I had gotten some jobs and had some guest stars and things like that. And this was the first one that was like 4 episode arc or something like that. And I was like, oh, great. And that 4 episodes turned into 5 seasons. And
That's what I want to talk about. So the 4 episodes, so when you did the audition, you knew it was a recur, right?
yeah, they were like a recurring character. They're like, and it didn't say explicitly, but they had told my reps, like, yeah, this will probably be 3 to 4 episodes. And then he dies because that's what happens on vampire shows.
But then you end up not dying and end up being like the audience favorites by the end. So I think
Yeah.
really interesting as actors when you're starting to do script analysis and you're starting to do exactly what you said, where it's okay, it's the guest star, it's the recur, here are the three sets of sides, here's the arc that they need to see, here's the relationship that they need to see. I think a lot of actors truncate themselves there versus being the writers answers or prayers answered, where it's like, oh, they need storylines. If this show keeps going, they need to diversify and move out. And I don't think a lot of actors have that forward thought of who can this character be connected to in the series? How can they live on? But if you thought you were going to die, did that play into any way in which you played the character? Because I'm curious what switched for them to all of a sudden be like, we're going to write for him more and more and more.
Yeah, that's a great question. It honestly didn't. I think I was still too like new to the game at that point to have all of those thoughts that you just talked about, which I think are actually really important. That kind of like 10,000 foot view of the story as a whole, right? And the entire like series and what's going on and where could this character fit. At the time, I was just like happy to have 4 episodes and I was like, oh, this is a fun character and I can bring my own like little personality to it. And I saw something in the writing where I was like, I think they're leaning in this direction where he's like a little sarcastic and a little irreverent and just like funny and playful and kind and all these things. And so I just did that. And I was like, this fits me really well. And it just happened to be like a piece of the puzzle that they didn't really have before. And that I don't think that they even planned on wanting or needing. But once they saw it, it was just like, oh, actually, this works. I think, okay, it brings like maybe a little bit more of a comedic dimension to what could be a very dark show. And so let's like keep exploring this. And then it became the fun game of, ooh, which episode's it going to be? Because I know I'm going to die at some point. Like, when's it going to be? And like every script that came out, I was like, is this it? Is this it? Nope. Okay. Once we got to the end of the first season and I did not die in the last episode, I remember thinking like, oh, I think they're going to keep me around for a little while. So that's cool.
The TV and film landscape, it's constantly changing, but traditional actor training has largely remained the same.
It's focused on a theater model whose main goal is to help you stretch the expression of your instrument. That's why you can have years of training,
From scene study classes to audition classes.
to even an MFA, and still not be able to book a 2-line co-star.
That's why we created the Bridge for Actors.
A collection of tech, craft, and business online courses to teach you the skills that you need to go from a student of acting
To a working actor.
Let's talk business about it. Okay, so you're hired on as a recur. You're getting paid guest star rates, I'm sure, because truncated for. At what point does your team or do you start to realize, oh, okay, I'm being utilized for a lot more? How do we push for series regular? Because you're new to the game, like you even said. And this is part of, I think every actor is, I just want to get the job. And then they get the job and they're like, hold on, how do I have job security? How do I make sure? And then, okay, can I ask for that? It's that people pleasing again and learning the business. So if you're willing to go there, how did you guys do that dance?
So what's really funny about that is we had heard, because I think I did 14 episodes. I ended up doing 14 episodes in the first season. And we had heard, this was the Vampire Diaries universe. And of course we were the spinoff of Vampire Diaries. And we had been told that basically the second a guest star actor asks for a raise,
Yep, gone.
they get killed off.
Yep.
And so I was terrified of that, of course. And I'm like, don't do that. I'm like, don't do that. We don't need to ask for more money. It's fine. I just want to be here. I just want to work. I just want to do the job. Once we got into season 2 and we had done 3 or 4 episodes in season 2, and it was pretty clear that like they had established a storyline for me, I was like, okay, I think maybe and my reps had been pushing, like, I think this is the time. I think we can go in and we can ask for a raise. We won't push them on series regular. We will just ask.
You wouldn't
for more
push on
money.
guaranteed episodes, because that's the other thing for people to know. You can ask for more money. You can also ask for a guarantee of episodes, because then that takes you off the market for something else. So if something else comes in versus something else coming in, and then now you're pushing them into a bidding war, essentially.
Yep, exactly. And so we didn't ask for guaranteed episodes. We just asked for more money because I was confident in this. Like I could tell, like I was confident in the storyline, and I was like, they want to develop this a little bit. They had brought on like a love interest for me and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, great. I don't care how many episodes it's necessarily going to be, but I think it's fair to ask for more money. And so it might have been like maybe 18 episodes in or something before we asked for more money. And that kind of continued for the next couple seasons, where it was like every 8 to 10 episodes or so, it'd be like, okay, can we have some more money? Okay, can we have some more money? Until we got to a point where it was like, okay, we're maxed out on what we can give a guest star. At which point then it was like, all right, let's talk about series regular. And then they gave it to me. It was just that incremental thing. And I literally remember one of the regulars at some point saying, hey, you've been here for a while. What are they paying? Like they should be paying you, like you should be making at least like double top of show. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm like I am. They're taking care of me, like and so they were like, okay, good. And so that was like a little bit of confirmation where I was like, all right, I feel like I'm doing the right thing, like I'm in the right ballpark. But it's those tricky things where you're just like, we don't really have that much power and control. And weirdly enough, I think it's good for actors to talk about it. Like I really do.
Thank you for talking. I was just going to say thank you so much for talking about it, because again, Chris Marshall just had a great episode a few weeks ago, and that was it. It was other people on set talking to her, being like, hey, by the way, we're all making X, Y, and Z, and you're making a tenth of X, Y, and Z, and you're doing just as much work. You're on every poster. The show is also valuable because of your talent and worth. I think it starts to play on the psyche as an actor. If you know everybody else is being valued at $100 and you're getting $1, it's hard to not feel underappreciated. Even, of course, you're so excited to be there. And she was so excited to be there. But we have to be able to talk to each other so we feel valued. It's not just for even doing the job, your pension, your health care, your longevity. This is your career now. This isn't a dream job. Like getting 3 episodes, 4 episodes, great. Having every 10 episodes, 8 episodes, you asking for a little bit more, just wonderful that you were able to do that. Did it take them 3 seasons before they made you a series regular?
Yeah.
Wow. Is there anything else business-wise going from Roswell to the originals into Yellowjackets, and you've done other things in between that you wish you would have known earlier on? Or
That's a great question. Yeah, I'm sure the list is endless, truthfully. Here's the thing, I think here's something that kind of sticks out in my mind as well. That actually brings me back to another audition story. So that kind of folds in. That kind of folds in well. Before I got the originals, I went through about a month-long process of testing for a network like sitcom on NBC. And it was one that they had already, the long story short is they had already shot it, but they didn't like their lead. And so they fired the lead, started reading other people for it to bring in for the rest of the series. And I remember not feeling right for the role at all. It was supposed to be, at the time, I think I was in my late 20s, and it was supposed to be for a high school student, and not just a high school football player, because I had done that where I was like, oh, the big, obviously, because I was 10 years older than any high schooler, which we all do at some point. But it was supposed to be for this nerdy, like science kid, virgin, who accidentally gets his classmate pregnant. And I just remember thinking, like, I don't really feel right for this, but I went in for the first audition and then had a callback and then like multiple callbacks. And I was like, does nobody else see that I'm not really right for this? Like, I'm flattered. I'm flattered that they keep calling me back. I get it. I understand the comedy. I understand what the show is, but like physically, I don't really think anybody's going to buy this. And eventually I convinced myself that I was right for it. I'm like, they know better than me. Like they know what's up. I get all the way to the studio test. This is my first test for a series regular, like signing the contract, the whole thing. I'm like, this is amazing. This is so cool. I'm up against one other person. It's just two of us that are like testing for the studio. We go into the studio test and it's like crickets, like no laughs, nothing. And I walk out and I was like, oh man, like this is where it ends. And I got a call almost immediately and they were like, hey, they cut the other guy. It's just, you're going to go test for the network tomorrow by yourself. And I was like, what do you mean by myself? I'm like, what, doesn't that mean I just get the job? I'm like, yeah, it's down to one person. So give me the job. Why do I have to go do a thing? And they're like, it's just procedure, right? It's just like protocol. You like go in and read for the network. So I go in the next day and I read for the president of NBC and like all the NBC execs. And it's like a raucous good time. Like everyone's laughing, having a grand old time. And I call my reps when I leave and I'm like, book it. Awesome. Just let me know when the call comes through. It came through a few hours later and they were like, are you sitting down? I'm like, yeah, I'm sitting down. And they were like, they love you. They think you're great. You're hilarious. You're just not really right for the part. And I was like, wait a second. Shit. What? I'm like, I knew that a month ago. Why is this just now coming? Why did it take the president of NBC to see that and recognize that? And so, I mean, that was devastating. Like I had truly convinced myself that this was the part for me. And if I couldn't get this, then I wasn't going to get anything else. Ironically, this was like 3 weeks before I got the originals. So like that turned out, and that show got canceled after 4 episodes. So like it worked out exactly the way it was supposed to work out. But I think what I took away from that experience is that like, in your gut what you're going to respond well to, what people are going to see you as, and people might lie, people might bullshit, people might be convinced for a little while, but eventually like everybody's going to see that as well.
Yeah. And I think that's an invaluable lesson. I also just think the recovery process is an invaluable lesson, that you didn't implode upon yourself like in those 3 weeks, because here comes the original.
I did for like 3 days.
Great. I think everybody has to give themselves some amount of time. I take a day. Yeah. My favorite childhood snacks.
Oh yeah. What do we got? Cereal?
Nutty Buddy. Like I take myself on a little like vacation. I watch great television that I want to be a part of. Woe was me. And then the next day you got to move on. Because you don't know what's coming down the pipeline. And if you stay in that headspace of almost being gaslit, where you're like, I knew that I wasn't right for it. And then you got me on board. And now I'm not. It's not personal, right? It's so hard.
That's the bigger lesson, is it's truly not personal. And it takes a long time and I still struggle with that sometimes, where I'm like, don't tell me it's not personal. And I don't know about you. I am a bit of a psychopath. I don't know if you do this or how many other actors do this. I watch every single thing that I audition for that I don't get.
Yes, of course.
Do you do that?
Yes. And I have to say, 70% of the time I'm like, I get it. wonderful. Like also that's why I think I like teaching, because I'll see 30, 40 tapes of something. I'd be like, 6 of those are so good. I have no idea how I would choose. I have no idea. So I don't take it personally anymore. 30% of the time I'm like, oh, that was a political move. My shit was better. I stand by what I did. And that was somebody's producer's friend, or it was written for somebody, or that's a favor over here, or CAA was like, sure, you can have Brad Pitt, but you also have to have so-and-so. You just start to understand the politics of it. And I think it's good as an actor to constantly see where you can improve, and then see when you're like, no, I actually did great work. I call that like a positive self-assessment. I think so many times actors turn into this place of, then I must suck.
Yeah.
No, you wouldn't be testing if you sucked. You wouldn't be down to you and one person if you sucked. It just, you wouldn't. So you got to take that negative narrative out of your brain and just look at it like, look at athletes. You grew up an athlete. You watch game day tapes. You watch the tapes. And you're like, okay, I could do that better. That game was good. That was good. Oh, they should have put me in. Why can't we do the same as actors?
I know. I think the best advice I ever got, I went to class with John Rosenfeld for a long time. Have you ever met John Rosenfeld?
Yes, it's great.
I love that man. So I was in class with him for a long time. I actually taught at his studio for a little while. He said something one time that has stuck with me my entire career. He talks about the fact that booking is a mistake. Like actually booking a job is an accident. The best thing you can do for yourself, and the way that you know that you are good, is if you are in the conversation, right? If you are getting callbacks, if you are testing, if you are quote unquote in the mix, right? If it's you and a few other people, if you're always getting to that level, then you're good. Keep on that path. Actually getting the job, it's just a flip of a coin. It's a dart throw. It's a complete and utter accident, because there are 1 million factors that go into that decision that have nothing to do with you whatsoever. And so it doesn't matter. Keep putting yourself in that position where you're like in those final 2, in those final 10, and like things are going to happen. And that's that's truly the best you can do.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, there's nothing else really. Divert your attention somewhere else. You don't go into the negative spiral. I like asking this question, and I think I know the answer, but look, everybody wants to get on a show. We want job security. You want to be a part of a good a good show that's actually maybe moving the needle forward and storytelling, or the industry likes it. You're on one of those shows right now, but it's an ensemble show. So I would imagine that you're not working every single day. And sometimes season after season, that creative mountain is being itched and satisfied. And eventually you become a little complacent. What are you doing when you're on a hit show? You're working 1 or 2 days a week. How are you filling your creative in other places?
That's a great question. I've experienced that phenomenon on a couple different shows. I will say I did not find myself becoming complacent at all on Yellowjackets. It happened to me when I was on the originals and we got into like season 4, and you're like number 8 on the call sheet. So not every story is about you, and maybe you don't have very much in an episode, or it all starts to feel a little redundant, and you don't put quite as much time and work into learning your lines and all that kind of stuff. And that's not a fun feeling. Like that's not.
You're also riding a bike. You're riding your bike every day. So you can run outside and jump on it and do a trick. And you're like, oh yeah, that's what I do now. This is what I do.
Yeah, totally. And honestly, a lot of that, I think it's lazy to blame the show or the writers or the producers or whatever, it's that. Because like it doesn't, that's our job as actors, right? It doesn't matter what's written on the page. Our job is to elevate that anyway, whether we like it or not, whether we like the direction of our storyline. There's always things you can do to talk to writers and producers and say, hey, can we maybe go in this direction, or I like this. But at the end of the day, like that is our responsibility, I think, as actors, to do the work that allows us to enjoy the process, right? If we're not enjoying the process, it's on us.
Completely. Look, novelty is inspiring.
Yeah.
By virtue of it's new. So you're just like a little, once you get used to something, you become complacent. So it's up to you to challenge yourself in different ways, which is why I think a lot of people find other ways sometimes outside the industry, or they start making their own content. So like on the originals, what did you start doing to evoke that inspiration when you were riding a bike every day?
I honestly just I remember finishing the 4th season and being like, that's not who I am. Like, that's not me as an actor. And so often we don't have other things necessarily to turn to. Like, I wasn't in a place where I'm like, I'm going to go write something or I'm going to go direct something. It was like, this was my job. and I would put effort into other auditions for like other things that were coming next or coming in between. But I honestly just looked myself in the mirror and was like, all right, get back to being the actor that I know you actually want to be. And so, yeah, great. It's like riding a bike, but I don't know. Can I ride the bike with one hand on the handlebars? Can I ride it with no hands on the handlebars? I don't know. How can I fuck around with this just myself and make this interesting and make this more fun and come back with a reinvigorated energy the following season? And I did that. And just as cheesy as it sounds, rediscovered my love of the process, I guess.
Yeah. Did you start in some other classes or were you just thinking of different
I
ways for
always do
yourself?
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good prompt. I'm glad you said that. I'm one of those actors that's yeah, even if I'm working, I like studying, I like training. So I'll go find a new teacher to work with. I'll get back in class. I'll coach on things just because I think that's always good for the soul. That's always good for just like evolving in our craft.
Yeah, I just like hearing somebody else's opinion. Sometimes,
Yeah,
like on something
totally.
when I'm so precious and getting so acute, having
Yeah.
another set of eyes on it just helps you. I just like creative collaboration.
Yeah.
You get a
Yeah.
lot more out of that. Okay, then talk to me about when you decided to make your own film. Like, when did that spark come in?
That has been there for a little while. So the cool thing about the CW, God rest in peace, CW.
I
I miss those
know.
days. Just like what a great pipeline for so many talented people to come up in this
Yes.
industry on both sides of the camera. But one of the things that I really appreciated about working on a CW show was they were great about letting actors direct. And so when we were on the originals, a number of our cast ended up directing by the end of it. And it was something that I really wanted to do. And I was like, oh, this is something that's always piqued my interest. I think that my brain naturally works in a little bit more of a director's way. Like I've worked really hard to get rid of that analytical, logical side of my brain when I'm actually acting and just let things happen. And so I was like, oh, I think this fits. I think I would like directing. I think I would enjoy it. I never got to do it on the originals. The show ended before I got a chance to do it. So I was always like, all right, on my next show, I want to do it. And so when I got Yellowjackets, that was a conversation early on where I was like, hey, this is something that I'm interested in doing. What I didn't quite appreciate at the time was that Yellowjackets was an entirely different beast
Yeah.
than a CW show. And that's no disrespect to the CW, but now we were doing only 10 episodes a year instead of 20 or even 13 or
23.
15.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the show finds massive success and is nominated for Emmys. And now you have directors coming out of the woodwork who like have won Golden Globes and won Emmys, and they're big time directors who are like, I want to direct, I want to. I'm like, all of a sudden, I'm like, they're not just going to hand an episode of this to one of
Hmm.
the actors who's a first time director. What basically happened was I talked to some people on the show, and I always knew internally they were like, you haven't directed anything yet. So go direct something. That was the advice is go make something yourself. And so I was like, all right, great. I'm gonna make a short film. It was like a 2 year long process. The big problem was I'm not a writer. I, for whatever reason, like screenwriting just escapes me. I don't understand it. I marvel at the people who are talented at it. Every time, even if I have an idea, I'll sit down at the computer and just like stare at a blank page and I'm like, never mind. I don't know how to do this. I'm like endlessly impressed by writers. I don't know about you, but like the fact that they can
Same.
just like reel off
Yes.
ideas and like reel off scripts and I don't get it. So that is not in my wheelhouse. So I was like, I got to find a script. I didn't want to ask a professional writer friend to do it because like they have their own jobs. So I basically ran a competition at my old college for like students. And I just like randomly emailed somebody in the drama department, a faculty person in the drama department, and introduced myself. This was after I think 1 or 2 seasons of the original or of Yellow Jackets. And I said, hey, I'm looking to direct a short film for the first time. I would love to get back to the university. I also need good ideas for a script. And so I got 35 or 40 scripts. Granted, it was college kids, so maybe 6 of them were like pretty good
Still,
ideas.
that's good.
That's good.
Yeah.
And then 3 of them, I was like, oh, these are good ideas and they're actually like decently well written. And so I landed on one of those and I tried to make it worth everyone's while. And I offered cash prizes and did meet and greets and all that kind of stuff for people that were coming up and looking to get into the industry. Took the script to a professional writer friend and said, hey, what do you think of this? Can you bump this up? Can you make it amazing? She did, bless her heart. And so then 2 years later, after we finished filming The third season.
The
Yeah. I was
third
like, wait, this
season,
just
yeah,
happened.
right?
I'm like, well, it's
You
all a
just
blur.
did
But
it.
yes, we just did this. So it was after we finished filming the third season. I was like, oh, I've got a window here. Brought on a whole team, shot it. We're in post-production now. I think it's the hardest thing I've done in my entire
I was
career.
just gonna say, what did you learn? Because it's so interesting as an actor to take on those roles, even if you've been on set, even if you've watched people do these roles. I just think helming something and trying to tie something together, you will never be the same actor again. You just won't.
Yeah, I don't think I will be. Oh my God. It's so fucking hard. It's
It's
really
so
hard.
hard. It
It's so
is.
much work. And I will admit, I took a big swing. I didn't, part of the end game here is I would, now that I am off of Yellowjackets, at some point I would like to go back to them and say, hey, can I direct now? Watch this thing. So I knew that I wouldn't just be able to direct something that would be like two people sitting in a room,
You can't do
like having
talking heads. Exactly.
yeah,
You
and
have
I
to
was like,
show
okay,
some
great.
skill. Yep.
So like I did pick a very big swing for a script. It's got visual effects, it's got stunts, it's driving, it's like all the things. And I'm
You
like,
did it
great,
all.
but it's
That's
like,
what I did. My first film,
yeah,
I was like, we're going to have a rig and we're going to do
going
that.
for
And
it,
we're doing
right?
everything. And at the end, I'm like, what did I do? Why? Just so much. You can learn one thing, I think, at a time now as I'm getting older, trying to do all of them in 1 6-minute short. I don't know how long yours is, but yeah, you
Yeah,
learn under fire.
mine is longer than I anticipated. It was a 12-page script and the as scripted edit was like 17 minutes and it's now cut down to about 13 and a half or 14 minutes. So
Impressive. That's a lot to cut out.
yeah, my editors were incredible, but I will say I'm incredibly grateful for. I had so many people that didn't ask a single question as soon as I picked up the phone and said, "Hey, I'm doing this thing. Like, I really could use some help." They were like, "Say no more," and they were there. And it's like all of the amazingly talented crew people that I have worked with throughout my career. So I shot it in Atlanta.
Amazing.
So many of the crew that I worked with on the originals was just like
Mhm.
there and helped, and I paid everybody what I could, and it was a phenomenal experience. I need a break. Like, I don't want to rush right back into doing it.
I was just gonna say, so have you gone back to work since, as an actor, since shooting your
No, because we
short?
shot it in December. And so I've honestly, between press for Yellowjackets and like getting into post production is something that every actor, I think, I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel like every actor, there should be a way to get more exposure
The
for actors with the
post-production.
post production process because we just don't realize, you just don't realize how much goes into it.
Yeah.
And I think for me, as embarrassing as this is, I think I thought of post production people a lot of times as like tech people, like pushing buttons and doing technical stuff. And until you see it up close and personal, you don't realize how freaking creative and talented these
Mhm.
people are. And like they're essentially making an entirely new film once it's already been
Or
shot
saving your film.
or saving your film.
Or
Yeah.
yeah, making something. I always say to actors, I always ask, who's your favorite crew member? Mine's the editor.
Yeah.
Always. They can make or break my whole thing. They can make or break a whole entire film, a story. They can read, especially as a film, I shot mine and then decided to do it MOS after we shot it because I was like, this is more compelling as a silent film than it is.
That's amazing.
But that was
Wow.
an editor's idea, right? So I just feel like so many integral parts of storytelling. That's why for acting, again, not personal, please hit your mark. Please look a certain way so we can have this puzzle piece come together. Please be actively listening so we can cut to you. So the editor has something to cut to if somebody else isn't doing to like, there's just so much more that goes into the creation of a final product.
Yeah. I will say, I don't know if you've ever had a producer or writer tell you this, but I saw it for myself. One of our Yellowjackets producers, when I was just like hanging out, told me, I was like, what is one thing that you wish actors knew more? And she said, do something different in every take because there's nothing more frustrating than going through all the being like, oh, do we have another take of this? And you go and it's the exact same thing. Oh, do we have one? It's the exact, and every like of the 4 takes that you do, everything is exactly the same. And then they have nothing to work with. And
That
to be
part.
fair, I get it on our end. I get why we do that because we're trying to nail it. And so oftentimes it's just like, great, another take. I get another shot at doing that, but I can do it better and I can do it better until you get to the point where you're like, great, I feel like I've nailed it and we can move on. The problem is now they don't have any variety or any variation. And so it's a tough thing, I think, to tell ourselves as actors, even if you didn't necessarily nail it, even if you don't feel like you crushed that take, if you feel like it was like good, switch something up, do anything a
Yes.
little bit different to give them some variety and to give them things to play around with, because you just don't know. You just don't know like what it's going to look like when you get in that editing room and you're like, oh man, like
Mm-hmm.
even as a director, I'm like, I wish I had just told them to even just look up like this way so that it cuts together a little bit better, or do this one little thing.
Yeah, and that just comes with practice. I can't, yeah, I've had editors come and talk on the show as well and inside my community. And I think that is the number one thing. I'd rather be an editor's dream by giving 5 or 6 different variations they can cut together versus that, because when we seek to repeat, it starts to become dull. Acting is about discovery. And if you want to
Yeah.
find a quick way to discover something new in the moment, do something different. Even when we're taping at home, dear God, do not do the same thing 6 times to get it perfect. Perfect doesn't book the job ever. And then you're sitting there watching 6 different versions being like, I blinked there. Over there, I blinked a little softer. It's Jesus
I don't know about
Christ.
you. I've started doing 2 takes
Yes,
for
I
tapes.
do.
Unless I mess up something, right? Unless I completely blow a line or I have to start over or whatever the case is, I will do it twice and that's it. And then I stop. I'm like, I can't do 5 takes and just sit there and watch every single one. And more often than not, my first one ends up being the one I go with anyway. And so I'm like, I've just gotten to that point with tapes where I'm like, this doesn't serve anybody to keep
When I
doing this
think-
over and over.
That's probably your years also on set, which I think for actors that are not getting their 10,000 hours on set and they're getting their 10,000 hours from self-taping, you better hit it on the first one, because when you're on set, that's time and money right there. If they got it
Yeah.
and they can move on, especially when you're on location, you're doing certain things, you're doing indie films, they don't have more than 1 or 2 takes. So you don't get to warm up for 4 takes before you get. So don't be in the habit at home of warming up for 4 takes to get your 5th take right, because then you're in bad habits and you're not going to be great on set.
Is that one of the lessons that you try to teach your students when you teach this stuff
Yes.
about self-taping? I'm so curious about your opinion. What are the other things? Because it's such a new thing. It's almost this art form in itself of self-taping is such a new thing.
I think it makes you invaluable. You understanding how the lights work. You've been doing hours on Roswell and originals and Yellowjackets. You know exactly how the lights work. You know how to make sure you're facing the camera. It's very simple. I just think that these are hours in time that you as an actor before you're on set can start prepping yourself with. So when you get on set, you don't get nervous when there's 100 people around. Where's my light? Okay. What's my framing? Framing is so much a part of storytelling. Actors that tape dead center, like right now, you and I are dead center. This is castery.
Yeah, right.
Framing versus on television, right? You've been watching yourself. You've been seeing stuff. So I think you can really frame for the genre that you're in. This is all educational stuff. Watch television and then turn around. I want my tapes to be able to be plopped right into the episode or right into the show. So as
that.
castings watching it or directors watching it, that's why I think the first 15 seconds is invaluable. You can do whatever the fuck you want when you're taping it. Please edit it in a way that I'm seeing something interesting in the first few seconds. You know how actors will also just throw up a tape. You could fade into that moment, just like they do. I think the more you can mirror what you're doing at home to what is being done, it's just going to make you a really confident actor when you get on set.
Yeah,
To
I love
learn
that.
even how to communicate with your DP. I tell my actors all the time, communicate with your reader. Hey, this is what the story is about. This is what's going on. So when you get on set, your DP, hey, where are we framing? Are we going to go on them first? I love talking to my DP. The director doesn't have time. The DP, wait, where are we going first? Oh, we're going to go on Steven first. Okay, cool. Now I know. It's just getting
Yeah.
comfortable. I just
Yeah.
think it's really getting comfortable with that. And either you learn on the job or now we have the invaluable lesson of learning at home. When you used to go in the room, very rarely, or at least the beginning of my career, I wasn't as confident to tell the casting director, are you here or are you here? The light's way over here. Do you mind can we make this work? I wasn't collaborating. I
Yeah.
was bowing down to, they must know what's going on.
Please like me.
Please like me versus trying to, they're working the camera, they're reading the sides, they're eating their lunch.
Do you teleprompters? Tell me.
I don't mind a teleprompter. You better practice it first. And you still need to do your script analysis. I think a lot of people are trying to use teleprompters and they're not still doing some analysis. So then they're just reading
so
it.
many people are using it as a way to just not have to learn lines and just like not have to do work on the
type of work that I do, I just learn lines really easily if I'm doing that already. I'll sometimes have a teleprompter for safety if it's a 5-page scene and it's medical jargon, but I'm treating it just like holding my sides. I can go over there, pick it up, and I'm still in the moment. That takes practice. So if you're not practicing it, I don't think it's a great idea to use it in a pressure situation, aka an audition, where you're like, okay, I'm testing for this. It's not going to be the first time I want to use a teleprompter. Also, anything chemistry wise, I don't use a teleprompter. Any tests that I don't use, I want to have chemistry. Yeah. So I'm still old school. I like to memorize or know what's going on, or I'll use my sides. But just when you're on tape now, if you're using your sides, you're looking down. If I have a teleprompter here, you see my eyes, and I'm still. So I just think it's whatever you're practicing, whatever makes you feel the most comfortable. Confidence and comfortability on a self-tape is what's going to get you hired. If you haven't been on set before, if you don't know the producers, you don't know casting, I want to see a really professional looking tape in delivery, because I want to know that I can trust you. It's money.
Yep, exactly. I love that. Yeah.
So that's my little spiel. That's
great. It's a great spiel. You're doing the people's work here.
It's doing the people's work. I'm so grateful that thank you for letting me dig in. Will you come back when you release your short? Because I think it'll be a really interesting experience to hear working through. Are you going to be sending it out to festivals? What's the next step once you make something? Where do you put it so people can see it or get you that job for directing?
Yeah, that's all in process for sure. So I'm learning a lot even on that front. So yeah, absolutely. Let's talk again once we get there.
Yes.
If it doesn't kill me first.
Every first job, the first thing I directed, the best piece of advice I got, and I'd be curious if you got any advice, even from your producer friend. But one of my producer friends was like, hey, you're going to fuck this up. And I was like, what? They're like, you're going to fuck it up. So just go fuck it up. You're going to learn the most from that and carry on to the next one. And I was like, that was the weirdest piece of advice. And I messed up so many things. Yeah. And that's just what you have to do. Did you get any piece of advice from
my editors told me the first time I went in and sat down with them, they were like, prepare to be disappointed.
Yeah.
The first time you see it, prepare to be disappointed. They were like, we tell every director that, especially first-time directors, but it's not going to look like what you have in your head. I got very lucky because I watched it and I was like, it's pretty close. I was like, I'm actually not that disappointed. I'm like, it's actually good. I actually don't mind it. But no, I think that's exactly right. I think it's the same as when you're acting, right? Like we play the movie in our head and we're like, ooh, this is what it looks like. And then you watch it and you're like, it doesn't exactly look like I thought it was gonna
My favorite is, I know I did something different on a different take.
Yeah, why didn't they go with
That's the one they chose? Again, not personal. You're like, oh, okay. Now in the whole conception of it, that makes sense. Or you just start to understand the politics of it.
I've had so many editors tell me that producers usually come in and their number one thing is, do we have a take where they're not crying?
Oh my God, Stephen, that's the best place to end this interview. Please, dear God, actors, that's the one thing. Usually it's written for the people that are reading the script, breaks down crying. Yeah. And then you'll hear from casting directors or producers will say to a casting director, why is every actor trying to cry on this line? Because it's written right there. And they're like, can you tell them to stop doing that? It's... Oh, or the actors that
give us one where you don't
one
cry,
option where we get real angry.
Give us some variation.
Variation is everything. Yeah, and hey, variation. Going from studying being a lawyer and then going from show to show like this. Do you feel like you have novelty still happening in your career? That's what's keeping this. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I'm hoping that the industry continues to support that too. I'm hoping that the industry as a whole starts reinvesting in like creators and people with great ideas and like taking a little bit more risk than I think we have over the past several years. And hopefully people are hungry for it.
People are hungry for it. Look, Anora winning and Substance winning. It's the Substance. Look, we're looking for new ways of telling story. And I'm excited to see that. Where can everybody find you? Either watching you or in Nashville. No, just kidding.
I was going to say, yeah, you just want my address. I guess on Instagram, even though I'm not very active, everyone will be very disappointed when you go to my page, but it's still there. It's at Stephen A. Krueger.
Yeah. And they can watch Yellowjackets. They can
watch Yellowjackets, the new season. We are almost halfway through the new season.
Almost halfway through.
Yeah, episode 5 is coming out this week. Yeah, jump in.
No spoilers. No spoilers.
No spoilers. We're not going to do that. Other than to say that I think this is our best season.
I do too. I'm going to say that.
Thank you. It only gets crazier. I don't know if you're caught up, but it only gets crazier from here.
I feel like Yellowjackets is that show that anything goes.
Yeah.
Anything. So whenever you think it's going one way, that's where I really like that.
Everything's about to go. I'll tell you that.
Ooh.
Oh,
okay. We'll come back.